Red and white confetti rains down as cheers erupt across Canada. The Liberal Party, led by Mark Carney, is projected to win the 2025 federal election. This stunning victory comes after a tense and closely fought campaign against Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party. Canadians have spoken, choosing a new path forward. The election night was a roller coaster, with early results showing a dead heat. But as the night wore on, the Liberals pulled ahead, securing a likely minority government. This election wasn't just about Canadian issues. The specter of Donald Trump loomed large, his protectionist policies and fiery rhetoric casting a long shadow over the Great White North. Tonight, Canada stands at a crossroads. The decisions made in the coming weeks will shape the nation's future. Stay with us for full coverage and analysis of this historic election. This election was about more than just choosing a prime minister. It was a referendum on Canada's place in the world. The economy, particularly the rising cost of living, dominated the campaign trail. But looming over it all was the shadow of Donald Trump and his aggressive trade policies. Trump's tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, implemented during his presidency, hit Canada hard. These tariffs, coupled with global economic uncertainty, fueled anxieties among Canadians. The cost of everyday goods soared, and many Canadians felt the pinch. This economic turmoil became a central issue in the election. The Conservatives, echoing Trump's rhetoric, promised to stand up to foreign powers and put Canada first. However, many Canadians saw this as a risky strategy, fearing it would further alienate their largest trading partner and jeopardize their economic well-being. The Liberals, on the other hand, campaigned on a platform of international cooperation and diversification. They argued that strong relationships with allies, not isolationist policies, were the key to Canada's future prosperity. Mark Carney, the man of the hour, is no stranger to high-stakes situations. With a career defined by navigating crises and making tough decisions under pressure, Carney has built a reputation as a steady hand in turbulent times. His calm, analytical approach has earned him respect in the world's most challenging financial circles, and now, he's bringing that same resolve to the political stage. Before entering the political arena, Carney served as the governor of the Bank of England, where he was tasked with steering the UK's economy through the uncharted waters of the post-Brexit era. It was a period marked by uncertainty, market volatility, and intense public scrutiny. Carney's leadership was credited with helping to stabilize the financial system, restore confidence, and guide the country through one of its most challenging economic chapters. His experience at the helm of the Bank of Canada prior to that only added to his credentials, making him a trusted figure in global finance. His return to Canada to lead the Liberal Party was a gamble, one that surprised both political insiders and the general public. Carney, who had spent years abroad, was stepping into a new arena, trading the world of central banking for the unpredictable landscape of Canadian politics. The move was bold, signaling a desire to apply his expertise to the challenges facing his home country. He replaced the charismatic but increasingly embattled Justin Trudeau, who stepped down after a decade in power. Trudeau's resignation marked the end of an era, leaving behind a party in need of renewal and a country searching for direction. Trudeau's legacy, once shining brightly on the world stage, had become tarnished by a series of scandals and growing criticism. Many Canadians felt he had lost touch with the everyday struggles of ordinary people, and his government was seen as mired in controversy and unable to deliver on key promises. The sense of disillusionment was palpable, and the Liberal Party faced an uphill battle to regain public trust. Carney, with his calm demeanor and reputation for economic competence, offered a steady hand at a time of global uncertainty. As inflation soared and economic anxieties mounted, his background in financial crisis management became a central part of his appeal. He spoke of stability, responsibility, and the need for pragmatic solutions to complex problems, qualities that resonated with a public weary of political drama. He presented himself as a pragmatic leader who could guide Canada through turbulent times. Carney's campaign focused on rebuilding trust, strengthening the economy, and addressing the cost of living crisis that was hitting families across the country. He promised to listen, to act decisively, and to put the interests of Canadians first, drawing on his experience to chart a new course for the nation. His message resonated with voters, particularly those feeling the squeeze of rising costs and concerned about the future. Many saw in Carney a leader who understood the complexities of the global economy and could bring real solutions to the table. Town halls and rallies were filled with Canadians eager to hear his vision, hoping for a leader who could bridge the gap between economic theory and everyday reality. However, Carney's lack of experience in elected office raised questions about his ability to connect with voters and navigate the cutthroat world of Canadian politics. Critics wondered if his technocratic background would translate into effective leadership, or if he would struggle with the rough-and-tumble nature of political life. Some worried that his polished image and international resume might make him seem distant or unrelatable to ordinary Canadians. His opponents painted him as an out-of-touch elitist, more comfortable in the boardroom than on the streets of Canadian cities. Attack ads highlighted his years abroad and questioned his commitment to Canadian values. Yet for many, Carney's outsider status was precisely what made him appealing: a break from the old guard and a chance for a fresh start. As the campaign unfolded, the question remained: could Mark Carney's expertise and steady hand win over a skeptical electorate and lead Canada into a new era? The election results reveal a deeply divided nation. Across the country, Canadians watched with bated breath as the numbers trickled in, each update shifting the mood in living rooms, community centers, and campaign headquarters. The tension was palpable, with supporters from both major parties glued to their screens, hoping for a decisive outcome that never quite materialized. The Liberals may have eked out a victory, but the Conservatives, led by the fiery Pierre Poilievre, are hot on their heels. The margin between the two parties is razor-thin, reflecting a country almost evenly split in its political loyalties. Mark Carney, the new Liberal leader, managed to hold on to power, but the sense of uncertainty lingers as both sides claim a mandate for their vision of Canada's future. The close results highlight the stark ideological divide that runs through the heart of Canada. From coast to coast, the electoral map is a patchwork of red and blue, with each color representing not just a party, but a set of values, priorities, and hopes for the nation. This division is more than just political, it's cultural, economic, and even generational. Poilievre, a firebrand populist, ran a campaign that tapped into the anxieties and frustrations of many Canadians. His rallies drew large, enthusiastic crowds, and his message was clear. He promised to shake up Ottawa, challenge the status quo, and give a voice to those who felt ignored by the political elite. He railed against the rising cost of living, government overreach, and what he saw as the erosion of traditional Canadian values. Poilievre's speeches often focused on the struggles of ordinary Canadians: families facing skyrocketing grocery bills, young people unable to afford homes, and small business owners burdened by red tape and taxes. His message resonated with voters who felt left behind by globalization and alienated by the Liberal government's progressive policies. In rural communities and small towns, many saw Poilievre as a champion for their way of life, someone who understood their concerns and was willing to fight for them in Ottawa. The urban-rural divide was evident in the results, with the Liberals dominating in major cities like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. In these urban centers, voters tended to prioritize issues like climate change, diversity, and social justice, aligning more closely with the Liberal platform. Meanwhile, the Conservatives held sway in rural areas and the western provinces, where economic concerns, resource development, and skepticism of government intervention were top of mind. The West, in particular, delivered a strong mandate for Poilievre, reflecting a long-standing sense of alienation from Ottawa. This divide reflects the growing gap between urban and rural Canadians, with each group facing unique challenges and holding different visions for the country's future. Urban voters often see government as a force for positive change, while rural Canadians are more likely to view it as an obstacle to prosperity and self-reliance. These differences are shaping not just election outcomes, but the very fabric of Canadian society. The close results make it highly likely that the Liberals will need to form a coalition government to govern effectively. With no party holding a clear majority, cooperation and compromise will be essential. The days ahead promise intense negotiations as party leaders seek common ground and try to avoid another costly and divisive election. The most likely partner is the New Democratic Party, a left-leaning party that shares many of the Liberals' progressive values. The NDP's support will be crucial for passing legislation and maintaining stability in Parliament. For many Canadians, this coalition offers hope for bold action on issues like healthcare, climate change, and affordability. But it also raises questions about how long such an alliance can last, and whether it can bridge the deep divides that this election has laid bare. While Donald Trump may no longer be in the White House, his presence loomed large over this Canadian election. The shadow of his presidency and the policies he championed continued to influence political debates and voter sentiment north of the border. Even as Americans moved on, Canadians found themselves grappling with the aftershocks of Trump's tumultuous tenure, especially when it came to trade and international relations. Trump's protectionist policies, particularly his America First agenda and his often aggressive rhetoric towards Canada, left a deep and lasting mark on the Canadian psyche. For decades, Canadians had viewed their relationship with the United States as stable and mutually beneficial, but Trump's willingness to upend trade agreements and impose tariffs on Canadian goods sent shockwaves through the country, forcing many to reconsider long-held assumptions about their southern neighbor. Initially, some Canadians were sympathetic to Trump's message, seeing it as a bold stand for national interests. But as his policies began to bite, impacting jobs, industries, and the cost of living, many grew disillusioned. The reality of America First meant Canada second, or even further down the list, and this realization stung. Across the country, Canadians watched with a mix of frustration and disbelief as their livelihoods were put at risk by decisions made in Washington. The trade war, in particular, became a turning point for many Canadian voters. News headlines blared about escalating tariffs and retaliatory measures, while political leaders scrambled to reassure anxious citizens. The uncertainty and tension were palpable, with protests erupting in major cities and heated debates dominating the airwaves. As tariffs hit key industries, especially steel, aluminum, and agriculture, factories faced closures, workers worried about their jobs, and shoppers noticed prices creeping up on everyday goods. The economic pain was not just theoretical, it was felt in paychecks, grocery bills, and the fate of local businesses. Canadians began to question the wisdom of aligning too closely with the United States, realizing that economic dependence could quickly become a vulnerability. Business owners spoke out about the challenges of navigating unpredictable trade policies, while economists and political analysts urged the country to diversify its trade relationships. The need to look beyond the U.S. for economic partnerships became a central theme in public discourse, with calls for stronger ties to Europe, Asia, and emerging markets. This shift in sentiment provided a significant boost to the Liberal Party. As voters looked for stability and reassurance, the Liberals' message of international cooperation and multilateralism gained traction. Their approach, once dismissed by critics as weak or naive, now seemed prudent and necessary in a world where old alliances could no longer be taken for granted. The Liberals emphasized the importance of working with a broad coalition of global partners, promoting trade agreements that would reduce reliance on any single country. Trudeau's high-profile meetings with world leaders and participation in international summits were highlighted as evidence of Canada's commitment to a rules-based global order. For many voters, this vision of a more independent and outward-looking Canada resonated deeply, especially in the wake of recent turmoil. The Conservatives, meanwhile, found themselves in a difficult position. Traditionally champions of free trade, they struggled to reconcile this legacy with the need to appeal to voters who had been drawn to Trump's protectionist message. Their campaign tried to walk a fine line, promising both strong economic ties with the U.S. and a tougher stance on trade negotiations. This balancing act proved challenging, and ultimately the Conservatives' message on trade lacked the clarity and consistency needed to win over a skeptical electorate. As election night unfolded, it became clear that their approach had cost them valuable votes, leaving the party to reflect on how best to navigate a rapidly changing global landscape. In the end, the legacy of the trade wars and the lessons learned reshaped not just the election, but the very way Canadians think about their place in the world.